Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Perez. Our guest today is an international profiling and communications specialist, creator, and host of the Campfire project. His name, Alan Stevens. He has worked with international clients, the likes of Disney Films and Gillette, and high-profile organizations like the Australian Federal Police to help them to understand how people think. Alan works with business owners and executives, helping understand and engage their clients and prospects, enhancing their presentations and negotiations skills, and increasing sales. And also he works with parents and teachers to help them enhance the ability to their children to reach their full potential while improving the experience of the parents, teachers, and students. He is also the creator of the hashtag WeTogether initiative and the Campfire project, which is a safe place for men and women to give themselves permission to tell their stories, to share their experience and wisdom from around the world. And he is a director of the Business of Smiles, helping to raise mental health and awareness in the workplace and around the world. He is also a non-executive director of the Central Coast Montessori Primary School. Alan, it is a great honor to have you today in my podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. And now that and then we're going to tell the audience what just happened now that we are sure that we are recording. I would like to start with my signature question. Alan, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
Well, first of all, listening to my own voice, I would dispute that I actually don't have an accent because everybody else has got an accent, which I think is quite unusual because you don't listen to your own voice. But my accent, born and bred here in Australia, so of English parents, both my mother and father were from England. So there's a little bit of that in there as well, but very much the Aussie type accent. And I've first of all grew up in Sydney and then moved to Newcastle where I am at the moment, which is the biggest regional city on outside of the capital cities here in Australia. And so been living here for quite some time, but the accent has been a bit from Sydney and a little bit from the regional town as well.
Awesome. And what brought you to working on profiling and communications?
Well, one of the things I realised that in everything we do in life, if we can't build a relationship, then the end result is, especially running businesses or anything else, we're never going to make an impact. We're never going to be able with people. And the reason I got into profiling was because I was dreadful at it. The first 50 years of my life was always trying to create relationships. I've been through 2 divorces. I've been through a lot of broken relationships. I'd even had people, business partners who emptied the bank, robbed me. And always trying to search and create relationships, but not very good at it. And around about my 50th year, I then started looking at things differently after my second divorce. I just realised one day that I just had to improve. I had to improve the way that I was reading people, being able to understand them first, understand another person. I could connect with them in the way that they need to be spoken to and want to be treated. And in that, then I'm going to have a better relationship. And then after that, everything else comes beyond that. So if I want to do business with somebody, I make the relationships first. So it was, for me, putting it bluntly, it was very succinctly, it was to improve the relationships that I had at the time. That's why I became a profiler.
Incredible. And then you work with the Disney Films and Gillette. What exactly were you helping them do?
Well, they were doing a joint venture. Gillette had come out with an Razor, and they were using the players from the Rogue One Star Wars movie as the players in the ad for the new Razor. And so they had a large event over in Pinewood Studios in London, and they got in touch with me and asked if I'd fly out to be interviewed by the world's press that they were bringing in, press from all over the world, Russia, Europe, America, etc. And my job was to explain to them the stories the face tells before you utter a single word. And so there were four presenters at that. There was myself. There was a gentleman who did, he was a groomer, so haircuts, barber, etc., how to trim your beards and everything, change the appearance, and so people would see you differently from that. And then the scientists from two other pods that were set up for the scientists from Gillette. And so my job was to explain those stories. And of course, when all the journalists asked me, well, how does this stuff work? I just spent the next 3 hours profiling each and every one of them. So they're all lined up, and I talked to them, tell what I was seeing in their faces, what I understood about their personalities, confirming that with their partners and people they brought with them, their entourage, their assistants and everything else, and getting confirmation from everybody that I'd read them right. So that was the main thing. So that was a big project that both Disney and Gillette were running at the time. But all places like Disney, all movies we watch, they've already profiled people. They've looked at it and said, does this person fit that part? You know, if you look at somebody, say a footballer, for instance, and they've got a narrow neck and they're a slight build, you wouldn't believe that they're a footballer. If they were playing soccer, yes, maybe. But if they were playing gridiron in America, then the answer to that would be no. They get pummeled. They get knocked down pretty quickly if they were in that role. So you don't believe the part. So the appearance was really important, and that's what I was explaining to the journalists.
Amazing. So it is incredible how the impact of the communication change you are able to profile people.
You talk to them in their way, because if I may, looking at you, I know that you like to get the overview, the least amount of information. Once you've got that, you're quick to make your decisions. Now, someone like me who is more analytical, who needs a lot more information before I'll make a decision, when I speak, I'm going to talk the same way I like to be spoken to. To you, that's going to be far too much information. You'll have got all the information you need. You've made your decision. And if I keep talking, you're just going to switch off. And so I know, just presented in this way, a lot of information. I would say, well, look, Maritza, there is a lot of information here, but what I'm going to do is give you the overview, and then you ask all the questions you need to ask. But if there's something there that you need to know that you haven't asked, is it all right if I tell you that then? So now I give you the overview. I ask you what questions you have. You now know that we're going to have a conversation. You're not going to be inundated with all this information from me like an avalanche. And then at the end of it, if there's something there that I think you need to know that you haven't asked, then I'll say to you, look, as I said before, there might be some information there that you need to know that you haven't asked about. Is it right if I tell you that now? And your answer to that would be yes, but you know we're having a conversation. And so by being able to read somebody, I can treat them with respect and treat them in the way that they want to be treated. And that's the purpose of the whole profiling.
And that is excellent. And also works in companies for the leaders to be able to manage their teams in a more empathetic way.
Exactly, because all the catch cry today for business owners is to work on your business. To work on your business means you need people in the business working there. There's also the saying that take care of your employees and they'll take care of your customers, which is absolutely true. Because if you're staffy and they're the ones that work with the customers, then the customers aren't going to be happy and you're going to lose business. So to know all of that and know how to treat your people so that they feel that they belong, that they contribute, that they're valued, that they have a place, they will then work hard. And you can go away and work on your business with the confidence that the company's going to run in your absence. It'll keep going because of people who are focused on the business, because they enjoy working with their customers. They enjoy doing the work that they're doing, and they have a sense of ownership of that business. If you don't have that, you're never going to get the chance to work on your business. You'll always be in the business.
And it's very important because this last part that you said is not only about the people, leaders communicating to the people, but also the leaders being able to find out if their team
Hmm.
members are good for what they are choosing them for.
That's it. See, if you've got teams, you know how to train them, how they know how to talk to each other so they can be more effective. Because teams are not made up of people who are the same. They're made up of people who are different. So if you have tasks that you don't like doing, you want somebody else in the team who likes to do those tasks so you can give them to them. They're the people we don't usually get on with. We don't go on holidays with them. We're completely different to them, so we don't really spend a lot of time with them. But at work, they're really necessary for us to have a good time at work, to feel productive, to get the work done. So teams are made up of all the differences, not the similarities. But then when you've got those differences, you need to know how to talk to them so that they don't get clashes. They can see the potential that each other person's got, know the gifts of the other person, so they know how to call on that person to help them with the tasks that they don't want to do or can't do.
So therefore, they have more effective and efficient teams that
Hmm,
are doing, people are doing what they like and what they are good at.
that's it. And then have somebody
Incredible.
else do the work that they're not good at. And the whole task then gets done.
Excellent. And how does this improve with not only doing business in other companies, but also the presentations?
Well, when it comes to, I just showed you before, if I was a salesperson, for instance, knowing how to read the other person, knowing how to talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to. That way, the presentation will take the time it needs to take. If you don't put if you were talking to me and you were just giving the overview, I'd be interrupting you and taking you back because I want more information. And
Mhm.
that makes it difficult for the conversation to go through. That would you. And at the same time, if I've got to keep pulling you back for more information because I'm not getting what I need, then I'm going to mistrust you as well. So in a presentation, it's definitely needed for that. In your teams to work together, it's needed there. To lead your staff, you need to be able to read them, understand where their gifts are, understand what tasks they're really gifted to do, and make sure they do more of that work because that's the stuff they will love to do and they'll be happy and productive. But also recognize, well, what things aren't they good at? How do I pass that to somebody else? And
Yes.
when it comes to businesses talking to each other, people talk about, are you a business to business or business to customer, B to B to C? At the end of the day, every relationship is H to H, human to human. Companies don't talk to each other. The people in the company talk to each other. So this is what every conversation comes back to: understanding the other person, knowing how to talk to them in the way that they want to be able to be treated and spoken to, and then being able to assess whether you've done that right, whether there's something emotionally going on with the other person as well. And yes, are they telling you the truth? And it's into a deeper discussion.
Incredible. So that also allow us to realize and come to the realization that be diverse and inclusive and feel and
Mm,
have others belong
mm,
to a team is not only talk about it, being empathetic and be nice,
mm,
but to get involved to
mm,
the point that you realize you actually accept and acknowledge how they are and
mm.
who they are.
Exactly. Because when you do this, you're finding out about the person. When you're able to understand their personality, know how to speak to them, and when the conversation we're having, we're listening to understand. We're not listening to just respond. And listening to understand, we find the similarities in our desires, our wants, and everything else. Once we've got that, now we've got some connection. And then from there, we can look at the differences, not to make judgment on the differences, but to understand the differences. When you do that, it's all inclusive. It brings everybody together because it's not focused on me. It's about the relationship that you and I can create. And this is why I can sit and talk to anybody, all genders, all religions, all cultures. and have a conversation with them. And in every conversation I have, I'm listening to learn to and every one of those conversations becomes a blessing that I receive because I'm able to connect and understand. So I'm learning all the time. As people say, are you a teacher, Alan? I say, I'm a part-time teacher, but a full-time learner. So in every conversation I have, I always walk away with greater knowledge than I had before and an understanding of the people I'm spoken to. This is how you get inclusion. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to put all these other things up and do all this testing and other things. Just behave that way to people and you have inclusion like that.
And you will have a beautiful relationship with all kinds of people. Where the thing is that we all think that inclusivity and belonging means that we all have to be the same. We all have to behave and act and think equally. And that's not it. It's about respect and creating relationships and being, like you were just saying, ask questions about the other person, no matter their religion, their culture, where they come from. It's about acknowledging who they are and building the relationship. I can, a couple of days ago, we had working. And one of the questions was like, I want you, the moderator told us, I want you to go in the breakout rooms and talk about who you are and find things that you have in common. So we had 3 people that were from 3 different places, and we all have things in common.
That's it. See, when I looked at it, and when I was younger, I used to think, geez, it'd be nice if there were more people like me. And after I thought about it for a while, I thought, if they are, stop the world. I want to get off. Because, as I said, there's things that I love doing. There's things that I really loathe doing. I just hate doing. I don't want to do them. I'll do them. But for the world to function, those things need to get done. If everybody was like me, then we'd all be fighting over doing the same stuff because we all want to do that, and nothing else would get done. The place would fall to pieces. So once I realised that, it's so necessary to have the other people around us who have the other skills, who do things that are completely different to us that we don't like doing ourselves. Having them around is a blessing. And so once I realised that, when I was talking to kids at school, I'd ask the kids, okay, who are your friends? And they'd say, usually their friends were standing around them. And I'd say, well, to the boys, which, girls and boys do you like? The opposite gender, for instance. And they would come back and say, oh, this. And I'd go, well, why? And they'd give me all the reasons why they liked them, which were similar to their personalities. I said, well, which ones don't you like? And they say, oh, the kids over there. And I go, well, what's different? Why don't you like them? Oh, they're completely different. They don't like doing the things that we like doing. They don't like the same people that we like, etc. I said, right. At school, this is fine because you're around the people who are like you. But when you go out to the workplace, your friends here are going to become your competitors because the jobs that you want to do, they will want to do. The girls or the boys that you decide you want are also going to want as well. So your best friends, they all started looking at each other with a bit of an eerie look at each other going, this is my competition. I went, yes, when you go out to the real world, they are going to be your competition. Now, I said, to see the kids over there you don't like, they're going to do the jobs that you don't like doing, which is great. So you'll be really happy that they're at work on Monday when you get there. You may not go on holidays with them on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but you'll be glad when they're there on Monday. They're not going to chase the partners that you're looking for either. And I started seeing the kids, the way they looked at each other across the room started to change. And I thought, right, if we can get this into schools and get them to understand this, this is another way of breaking down all the bullying that goes on in the yard. Because once people appreciate this is somebody, when I get out to the real world, is going to be my ally, I better make sure that they're friends now so that when I get out to the real world, I don't have to force them to do this, the other stuff, or have to work with them and feel uncomfortable about it. We're going to like each other because of our differences. And when they start liking other people because of the differences, now it's easy to have inclusion and acceptance of everybody.
And I love this. And this brings me to the next question, which is, we are all working together, and then you are the creator of the hashtag WeTogether initiative. So, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, well, when I was working in business and especially talking to men, I would ask them, well, if you described your life, your personal life and your business life, give me one word to describe it. The two words that kept coming back all the time, the majority was confused, followed by frustrated. And I said, well, right, confused about what? They said, well, at home, we thought, and this is especially Gen X and baby boomers, we thought our job was to go out into the big world, bring the resources back and look after the family. And I said, well, how's that working for you? He said, we've got to go out to the real world to bring it in. But now we're told by our family and kids, our wives and kids and partners, that we are physically and emotionally absent. And we can't be in two places at once. If we're home, we're not bringing the resources in. If we're out here, yes, we're bringing the resources in, showing our love for the family by being absent from the family. And it was causing.
Hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode.
And it was causing frustration as well. And they said, okay, I said, what about the workplace? They said, well, look, we try to do the right thing all the time. We try and respect everybody, but with political correctness and gender equality, with the rules being changed every day, what we can say today, tomorrow we'll be told we can't say. And after we've said it, we're in trouble and we didn't mean to do anything wrong. That was causing frustration and in a lot of cases anger, which was coming out in the workplace. And then all of it together at home was causing domestic violence. So I realised men needed a safe place where they could just come and vent, just tell their story and get it out and have somebody listen to them without criticism, without judging, without counselling, without telling them that they were right or wrong, just be the others. And because I was able to read those men really well, they would open up very quickly. These were stories they'd never told anybody. Psychologists, psychiatrists, family, friends, they just pushed it down and kept it down. Well, once I started interviewing, they opened up really quickly and they tell their life stories. And some of them were horrific stories. But my job was just to sit, listen, and hold their space. Yeah. At the end of it, then I said to them, okay, well, let's join in panel discussions and start talking about the issues, pornography, drugs, alcohol, all the different toxicities. And we talked about all, but I had women in the group from day one because I didn't want it to be a men's group on its own. I wanted the men to finally realise the women were listening to them, but I desperately wanted the women to actually hear how men could speak. And I was waiting for the women to then step up. So the men had to lead the way as far as I could see it, because if the women spoke first, the men never would. Once the men started speaking in the panel discussions, that was when the women started sending me personal messages going, we love these guys. We've never heard men talk so deeply about their emotions, nor so wisely about how to improve society. Is there any way we can get involved with them? I mean, come on. So I got to do one-on-one conversations with them, brought them into panel discussions. No subject is off the table. We've talked about menstruation, menopause. Does size matter in the bedroom? No subject is taboo. We will talk about anything. In that time, we've got a full range of the different cultures, religions, also all of the different gender identities. And not once have we had any bigotry, sexism or racism. And not once in over 600 hours of conversations have we ever had anybody disrespectful to anyone else. At the same time, that's inclusion and equality, but we took it to another level because I then started looking for coaches to tell theirs, and therefore people would hear their stories, and it gave the people who were listening to their stories an opportunity to work out who were the good coaches. So if they needed coaching, they could find a coach. And we then promote the coaches as long as they've told their one-on-one story. But I then went after people who run their own groups, men's groups, women's groups, community groups, getting them to come in and tell their story. talk about why they created the group that they're running, so that we could then advertise their groups to the world, so that more people would know about their groups and they got more chance of surviving. But then I thought, right, most of those people running their own groups are going to go through tough times. Why did they start their group in the first place? Tough times they went through. Now they've got this group and looking after everybody else. There's going to be more tough times. But if they got together, because who do you turn to when you need support? You can't go to the people who you've been supporting, because it feels that you're dumping on them when you're supposed to be there for them. But if you've met all these other leaders of other groups and had in panel discussions and been talking and building some connections, when you go through tough times, you can get on the phone, go and see, get on a Zoom call or a video call and connect with somebody and have a chat with them. So you get peer support. And that brings those groups stronger together as well, because now they support each other.
Okay.
Which none of the charity groups out there at the moment that I've been able to find, none of them support each other. They just look after themselves.
Yeah.
But it's only when we come together that we actually do this, especially the groups who are into inclusion and diversity. None of them were talking to each other. And I'm going, isn't that what you're supposed to be doing within your group? You should be doing that with other groups.
Yes.
So we've done something that no other group has done worldwide. And that's now led on to the Business of Smiles, which is a not-for-profit charity. And we've got all these other events that are coming out of it as well. But it's one thing that's brought people together worldwide.
Yes. And how important it is to come to the realization that we all need each other. And just by listening to it, we're going to understand and open our minds to the differences and make and understand that the differences are just natural. No tree, no one leaf of a tree is exactly the same as another leaf. There are no two leaves that are the same.
And all those leaves on the tree make it beautiful. You have a tree without any leaves, it's not that attractive. Or one leaf on its own. Yeah. Well, if the tree's only got one leaf on it, we start to feel very sorry for the tree.
Yes, exactly. So with all these, you started in anticipating and moving around this wisdom around the world, because being in Zoom and being also online, but also there were some presential ones, but being online, you were able to host people from all over the world.
That's it. So there wouldn't be a continent, or the only two places, large areas that I haven't interviewed anybody on so far is the North and the South Pole. But I'm working on it, because if anybody knows anybody out there who's doing research in one of those areas, they're in huts out in the cold and everything cold, they're bound to have internet connections. If they've got a satellite internet connection, I can do a call with them. So I'd love to talk to those people and find out why they do what they do, what got them to go to somewhere so isolated and to do the work they're doing, and what is the work that they're doing? How does that impact on the world? Because I know that some of those areas, when the research has been extremely valuable to medicine and other things as well. So you can imagine a conversation with somebody like that, how interesting that would be.
Yes, that is really interesting, because you get to work with people from the opposite side of the world, and then find out that there are things that are that you have in common, but there are also big differences. But yet still you are able to create a relationship with these people.
That's it. Because across the board, if we look at it, every human being wants to belong, wants to feel that they contribute, wants to feel valued, because all of those things are necessary about feeling loved, and everybody needs to feel loved. It's the way we're wired humanly. So there's a connection with everybody. This is one of the reasons why, I've spoken to men who have transitioned to females who have transitioned to males, etc. And the kind I've had it's been fascinating understanding their thought process, what they went through, having an appreciation for what they did put themselves through and the feelings they had and everything else. Every one of those conversations has been such as I said, a gift to me to be able to receive that, because I found out so much about people, which allowed me then to appreciate everybody in a completely different way.
Yeah.
This is how we get past bigotry and all the bigotry and everything else comes from fear. Once you have those conversations, then there's understanding there. The fear's gone.
The fear is gone, exactly. Because the fear is to face something different and is going to do something bad to us.
That's it.
So now let's translate that to children. So you're helping also parents, teachers with our kids, with the new generations. What is the main difference that you see working with adults and then with children?
Well, when it comes to reading a child, I'm using the same traits and things that I'm using with an adult. It's just the way we apply it, how we actually address it. So if I'm dealing with an adult, I can explain to them what I'm seeing and we can work together. When we've got a child, the child doesn't understand this. So it's really educating the school parents about the gifts and the upside and downside of the child's traits. The upside of where our strengths are, where their gifts are. The downside is how we get triggered when we're stressed. So if the parent understands that and the teacher understands that, we know how then to talk to the child in a different way so that we can really help them develop their strengths, at the same time not trigger the downside of their traits. For an example, if you've got a child who's got Asperger's or what do they call it, or autism or anything like that, and they find being around people very stressful, well, the specialist will say, oh, you've got to get them used to people down the shops and things like that with you. But you don't plan it out. If you say to an autistic child, for instance, I'm going down the shops to get the bread and milk, but you also buy butter, but you haven't told them that, that's broken what the plan was. That stresses them. To take them down at Christmas time when all the lights are going, or take them down the busy time of the day when the place is packed, that's going to push their buttons. So knowing how to introduce that to them, knowing how to talk to the child, how to explain things and everything else completely changes the reactions you'll have with them. A perfect example is a mother here in Newcastle who, when her son was 6 years old, got me to profile him. He has Asperger's and the school didn't want him. After schools care didn't want him. I profiled her son, gave her information on how she should change the way she spoke to him. I gave it as a written report that she took to the school and the after schools care. And she very wisely and very smartly told each of them that the others were doing it. And if they didn't do it, they'd be held responsible, be on their head. Neither wanted to be held responsible, so they both put it in place. So she played them really well. A year later, when he was 7, he was doing presentations in front of the class when the school had said he never would be able to do it, ever. At the age of another year and a half later, with the doctor's approval, medication was off the table. And the psychologist was let go. They didn't need him anymore.
Wow.
He's now an entrepreneur. He's almost 20. This is 14, almost 14 years ago, and she's still doing testimonial videos for me today. She's out telling all the people especially with children who have, we've put them into categories with so-called conditions. She's telling all of them they need to come and talk to me. She's one of my strongest advocates because once she put it in place, she got the results.
This is beautiful. So you see, this is something that tells us that children, when we are children, we are not born with these differentiations. But if we are programmed that way by society, our parents, our teachers, then things get mad and things get kind of like messy. But what you're saying right now, if we decide to treat children the way they need to be treated individually, like what we want as adults, the world becomes a better place for everybody because we'll have a better society.
Exactly. Well, see, as I mentioned before, your trait, we just like the overview. Imagine being a very young child with that particular trait, and you've got a parent who is analytical. They need more information. When the child is not doing something right, they virtually nag them. That's the way it comes across to the child. So the child will shut down and pull back. Because they go, why? What's wrong with me? If you've got it the other way around, the child is more analytical and the parent is somebody who just likes the overview and just gives them a little bit of information. The child's going, well, how do I do this? Where's the information I need to do it? So now my parents aren't telling me, they don't care. So we create problems because how to talk to the child. But the moment you know how to talk to the child, you've got a stronger connection. And the child knows that you care. They can ask the questions they need to ask. You're able to then recognize whether they need to ask more questions so you can supply more information. Once you do that, the child feels that they're understood, that they are good. Because if they can't understand what you're saying, they feel that they're dumb. Especially if their siblings or other children understand it, but they'll only understand because they're a different personality to them.
Yeah.
So we measure ourselves against everybody else. And so next, we wonder why everybody is insecure or has gone through stressful times. And a lot of it has been the lack of communication that's caused those stressful times.
And then you're touching something important that, look, there are people that have stress. There are people that might be anxious. There are people that have different mental, not illness, but mental ways to react to different things. So you're also being on mental awareness in the workplace. And you have been helping people around the world dealing with this, because profiling and communication is one of the best ways to prevent triggers to others.
That's it. See, the face not only tells their personality, but it also tells us the levels of stress and things that they've got. So when we look at somebody, we know whether they're going through a hard time. And the indicators we're getting will just tell us how deeply hard that time is. We know whether somebody's just tired. We know whether somebody who's in that early stage of stress where life's against me. And this is where they can be suicidal. If they get through that stage, they go to one we call melancholy, where life to them has always been rubbish, it's always been bad, it'll never change. And they either start to accept that's their lot in life, and so they're going to just be depressed and unhappy and reserved away from people, or they will take it to the next level, and they'll either take it out on somebody else or take it out on themselves. This is when suicide and murders happen. And if you can see that in someone's face, quite often, it's just that matter of showing that little bit of an interest. I recognize something's going on. Would you like to talk? Would you like someone to just listen to you? You know, how many times have we heard somebody say, you know, they didn't realize that when they actually spoke to somebody, that person later on has come back to them and said, right, because you spoke to me that day, I decided not to commit suicide. But they were right at that point ready to take their life, to just because somebody smiled at them or said something to them friendly, that it made them feel that there was something worth staying here on the planet for.
You remind me of something that happened to me when I was 16. I was in a school, and I was very welcoming with everybody. I was at the choir, I was a cheerleader, I was in dance, I was I was the kind person that will talk to everybody, just because I was very curious and very welcoming as well. And there was one girl that was like, I think she was a senior back then. She was a senior. And I always saw her talking to the teachers, talking to the principal during the recess. So once in a while, when she was by herself, I will go and talk to her, because I saw her alone. This is just the way that my parents taught us to be, to call if somebody alone, just be nice and sit next to them. So I started talking to her. To my surprise, I was invited to her birthday that year. And my surprise was that, number one, I went into her house, and they were very wealthy. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? And number two, the mother called me aside and gave me a present. I was the only person invited that was not part of her family.
Mm.
And the lady present, it was like like a little jewelry coffin thingy, very pretty. It was a
Mm.
little memoir and a little momentum. And the lady told me, "You have no idea the change that you made
Mm.
on in my daughter's life."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh wow." And she's like, "My daughter tried to suicide last year, and we had to change her to this school.
Mm.
And she has a hard time making relations and creating relationships.
Mm.
So far, you have been the only person that talks to her."
Mm.
I was touched, and I promised
Mm.
myself that I will welcome everybody ever
Mm.
since. You never know what you say. You never know whose life you're gonna change.
That's it. And that's a two-way street. That people say, oh, isn't it wonderful that somebody talked to somebody else and it changed their lives? But when we do that, we receive a massive gift as well, because we can hear the emotion in you when you're talking about that, the gratefulness, the gratitude that you have for having experienced that. So when we connect with other people in that way, they receive, but also we receive. As they say, you can't light someone else's lighting your own at the same time.
Yes,
And so this is an example of inclusion,
yes,
being totally inclusive, because why looked at her and she was talking to the teachers and the principal and other things. In fact, she was sitting on her own. There would have been also thoughts of, well, she's able to talk to them. What's going on in that conversation? So there's a
yes,
curiosity as well that's there. And then you go and talk to them, and then all of a sudden you find out that she talks to them because that's the only chance she gets to talk to anybody, because nobody else
somebody.
talks to her.
Yes,
You know, Once we start listening and we start being involved in our own lives with us, because if you're just involved in your own life, it's a pretty lonely place. It'd be like that girl. But when you're involved in your community and the people around you, your life involvement even becomes greater in your own world, because it's now including everybody else. So when we do that, we always win. As I said,
yes,
I'm in my 70s now. It took me 50 years to learn that.
yes,
The first half of my life chasing relationships and not creating them. To the next 20 years, I've been spending my life helping people to create their relationships. And because of that, I've got far more relationships than I've ever had across the first 50 years of my life.
yes.
As I said, when I turned 70, my 70th birthday was celebrating continents.
How
We had people
beautiful.
coming in on Zoom from all over the place,
How
talking
beautiful.
about the profiling work and how it impacted on their lives, how it, same with the Campfire projects, how both of them not only changed their lives, in a lot of cases saved their lives.
Yes.
That,
And
they had me in tears. To have
yes,
that many people coming in and realizing I'd impact on that many, the value that I felt in my own existence just went up as well.
yes,
When you have that and you're able to help other people, you can't help but feel better about yourself as well. So whenever you're feeling down, the best way to change that is go and help somebody else. And as you elevate, your energy will change as well.
yes.
So
And
we're
put
not
this,
dependent on other people. We're interdependent, interconnected. We've all got value. We all stand as individuals, but we can achieve much more when we connect with other people.
exactly. So you mentioned the Campfire project.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what it is.
Well, as I said,
And
safe place for men and women to be able to come and tell their stories. Then from there to be able to make connections. So we've got people, men and women who have connected in there. They're doing joint ventures together. We've got people from different parts of the world working together on projects. That led to the Business of Smiles, which is a charity working in the area of mental health.
yes,
And we go out into the public, big smiley T-shirts, black T-shirts with a big yellow emoji on it, very bright yellow socks with little black dots all over them. We walk up to people and we thank them for doing the best that they could through the fires, through the floods, through COVID, all the different issues we've had. And people always ask us, what do you mean by, thanking us for doing the best we could? And we always ask them, well, on all the decisions you've made in life, do you try and make the best decisions with the information you have? And they go, yes. Well, we want to thank you for that. Some people will just give up, but even through the tough times, you've tried to do that and go, yes, well, we gift socks. Now, then we tell them the story of the socks, the little black dots. These are the tough times we go through in our life. We're not going to get out and they're going to come. They're always going to happen. But the yellow represents there are more sunny days than dark days. It represents the support we give others and others give us. And when we've got enough of that, this is what keeps those black days, those dots separate from each other. It keeps our dark days separate, which means our life doesn't turn into a bleak life. But usually when we've done that, people break down and tell us their stories. I did that in Melbourne. We had 2,500 pairs that we gave out Christmas before last, over 12 days leading up to Christmas. I went up to 3 policemen, gave them a pair of socks, went through that with them, and they were all wiping tears from their eyes when I left.
Yes, I remember that story.
So this is why this is so important, that when we invest in other people, we're investing in ourselves as well.
Yeah.
We can't do one without the other. If we just invest in ourselves, we don't really make a very good investment. But when we invest in others and we invest ourselves in that, we invest in ourselves as well. And that's when we get a greater return.
Yes. And there is no better pay than a smile from another person.
That's it.
When you make somebody smile, that it's priceless.
That's it. Now, you smile at a child. I'll be sitting in cafes and things like that, and parents, and especially if there's a child who's playing up, I'll have a bit of a smile, and the child will usually quieten down and smile back and everything else. And half the time, the parents don't even know that there's been a smile transfer between the two of us, but they just then they're back to their conversations with their friends and everything else. And I've had that interaction with the child. The child's happier. I've enjoyed their smile, because there's nothing better than a child when they really smile with their whole face lights up. But I know that without the parent knowing, I've impacted on them as well, because noise in the room, the worry about their child is dissipated, and they're able to get involved in a deeper conversation with their friends. Everything flows on. So when we smile at one person, that will flow on to the next person that they smile at, or the next person they interact with.
Yes.
And this is how we turn it into an epidemic. We just spread that around and it just grows.
It is beautiful. But before we get to the end, I would like to give you the opportunity to tell our audience how can they find you, or where can they find you, and how can they contact you.
Well, the best way to find me is through my web, which is my name, Alan Stevens. So Alan with one L, ALAN, and Stevens, STEVENS.com.au, AU for Australia. And they can connect me through me there. They'll find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn and other places, but that's probably one of the best ones to find out a little bit more. Connect with me there and have a talk. But it's all about how can I help people. And by the way, I'd love to give your people a free gift, which is a free course that they're 28 minutes, not doesn't take long to get through. It's 14 little parts. The shortest video is 28 seconds. So when people say, I haven't got time, I go, well, you haven't got 28 seconds to watch one video, because that'll get them into the rest of it. But it gives them an idea of how the profiling works. So how they can actually use the couple of traits that are taught to build better rapport with people when they meet them. And so that's a free gift. And it's just my website, thealanstevens.com.au, the / and the word free, FREE. That will then take them off to my training platform, where they can then join up, go and test that course. Now, when they do that, if they're on Facebook, for instance, puts links on the end of it, tracking links, and that screws that redirection up. So I will send you the link to the training platform as set. So if you put it in the notes, you can give them that link.
Perfect. We will put it in the notes so that everybody can take advantage of that wonderful gift, so that you can start communicating with each other better.
Excellent.
Alan, would you like to leave us with a last thought for the audience?
Well, 2 thoughts. There's an old saying that the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything. So keep an open mind and keep taking the information in. But the most important one is what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community will be eternal.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful.
Mm.
Alan, thank you so much for your time. I loved this conversation as I loved the first one that we had. Always amaze me with your stories. And to you, our audience, remember that you came to this earth because a great force loved you, to be loved and to love one another. Thank you. Until next time. Bye. Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.